Welcome to another episode of the Unfocused Podcast, where we delve into the world of photography and videography. Today, we're thrilled to have a special guest, Eric Kottemann, a lifelong musician turned videographer. As the media manager for Complete Weddings and Events Gulf South, Eric brings a wealth of experience and a unique perspective to the intersection of all things creative. Join us as we explore the harmonious relationship between music and videography, unraveling the artistry behind creating unforgettable moments in the world of events and celebrations. Eric, thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today. How you doing, man?
Good. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate you having me.
So let's dive right into it. I got my handy dandy notes here. What is this prop you brought with you?
Okay, so this is
it's a lightsaber, clearly.
it is the Luke Skywalker Return of the Jedi lightsaber.
Nice.
Which is funny because that was never like the one on my radar, but when I was in the store, I was immediately thinking, I'm going to get the Phantom Menace Obi-Wan because that's like right up my speed. And then I just saw how classic this looked and I had to leave with it.
That's pretty nice looking.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring a little piece of my background with me.
Absolutely.
So got the green lightsaber here. And then the Mandalorian episode where he whips that thing out came out like 2 months later. So it was pretty perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thoughts on the CGI they used in The Mandalorian? The deep fake?
I hope they go back and fix it one day.
Still looks better than the holiday special, though.
Yeah, that doesn't take that much. But when he showed up in the Boba Fett show, it was like really well done.
It was.
I hope they like somehow can go retroactively fix that.
Do you know the story behind that?
I mean,
so there was a guy on TikTok who was doing deep fakes.
You know the story.
And Industrial Light and Magic found him, and they were like, "Hey, come do this for us." And he went and did that, and that's why they got. And I can't believe they found the dude on TikTok. That's what's really cool. So that's TikTok. I'm coming for you.
So we're over in now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway.
So you are media manager for Complete Weddings and Events Gulf South.
Yes, correct.
How did you get started in that? And obviously I want to talk about you as a musician, but let's talk about you as a videographer, and then we'll go back in time.
Sure.
So tell me how you got started with Complete.
Yeah. So it's really funny to tell the story in this order, but like, frankly, what happened is midway through my collegiate career, I had like one of those, what you would call panic attacks, where you just realize I don't want to get this business degree and I'm failing and I'm not a bad student. So during finals, I had to figure out, okay, so what am I going to switch my major to? And the things that came down to, I knew I didn't want to do anything with music, and I can explain that a little bit. I thought about being in like early child care, like therapy.
Interesting.
Counseling, I guess, would have been the degree. And then film. I just grew up loving movies, loving telling stories, and it just seemed like a real natural fit. So anyway, I get the degree at LSU, and I come out, and one of the big stigmas in school is I'm not going to do weddings. I'm not going to do weddings. I'm not going to do weddings. That was like my mantra for like a year and a half as I was gigging.
Gigging on like film sets you're talking about?
Yeah,
smaller indie projects, things like that, or
little commercials and stuff.
Gotcha.
Pretty much where anybody could find themselves at that point. But I was getting a little older, and I realized I didn't really like set life that much because of just some personal things with health and stuff.
It's rough, man.
So I realized I didn't want to be on set like all day long. So I go to a wedding for my old drummer, and sure enough, Complete is shooting it.
Nice.
Video and photo. And one of the girls who was training there, I knew. So I went up to her and we like talked a little briefly, and I was just like, "Do you like doing this?" And she goes, "Yes." And she knew that I had a bit of like a camera background. And she was just like, "You need to apply. You really do. It's a great company." I applied, and then, yeah, the rest is history.
Wow.
That wedding was December of 2018.
So then, about 5-6 years.
Yeah, we're creeping up. I joined Complete. I interviewed and got in March of 2019, and then I was a staff member, at least a office staff member by the fall. So around October. I'm sure you might have Chase on, and if we talk about it, it was one of those situations where it was a really hectic wedding that I was training on. And we were at White Oak. Right. And so the way we had the tripod set up, you had your left, your right for the bride and groom, but it was so dark, it was at night, that they didn't have like a super, super back camera. It was more to the side on that walkway. Right. And after they cleared the processional, I just like inherently grabbed the tripod and put it in the middle aisle, and Chase was like feverishly running to come get the tripod, and he like almost had to process the fact that I grabbed it and was like, okay, good, and then went back, and he said when I did that, he's like, okay, well, this guy knows a little.
We'll keep him.
A little thing or two, yeah. So yeah, man, and it's just been a journey since, like a pandemic later. You and I both have families now, like full-fledged families.
Yeah. And I'm very thankful to have come across Complete, especially when I was getting into this, and that's gonna sound real good on camera. Me go, sorry everybody, I'll cut that out. I'm real thankful that I got to come across Complete and met some really cool people, and y'all turned into some really good friends, and I've really enjoyed the walk.
There's always been a bit of a family vibe, even when I felt like the new guy. I could tell that a lot. I'm not going to just start saying names as if like people know, but just a lot of people who were in the building all the time, I could just tell had been through, for lack of better terms, like battle together. Yeah. Because it can get stressful.
Oh yeah.
So, and it was a little harder to retain that after the lockdown, but I do think we have a really good group of people right now working.
Now, Complete is not only in Louisiana, but also in Austin. But that y'all, Complete, for those who don't know about Complete, they travel between the whole Gulf South. Like, so I remember I've gone to Texas to do a wedding. I mean, y'all go, what is the furthest you go?
So
in the territory of spots.
Texas is so big. I'm not even sure, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's a big place.
Probably, I know that we have Austin and San Antonio.
Oh,
there's a bunch of million little cities in between there.
Yeah, so
and then Dallas is its own thing that we don't do. And
yeah,
Houston's
so
its own thing that we don't do.
And I say that if you need a wedding, Complete does travel, and it's great because there's not it's and feel free to correct me, photo, video, lighting, DJ,
coordination, photo booth. Those are the big ones.
Yep. Yeah. And that's I think it's really cool that it's kind of an all-encompassing.
Yeah, if you're looking for something, a vendor where a lot of your needs can get met in one place, and you are somebody who doesn't want to have to worry about those little details, we're like a perfect place for you to come stop.
Absolutely.
And we all are on the same wavelength, all the staff. So you don't have to worry about like, the photographer having like their agenda, the videographer having their agenda. And I understand like people might have like a very specific, like I want so-and-so to be my photographer, and that's what they care about. And so, totally understand. And we work with third-party companies as well. But just having like the team element is something really nice to have, to where you as a couple, you're not worrying as much about what's going on. And I'm always like that about it.
Yeah, it's like a cohesive thing.
Yeah, 100%.
So for you as a videographer, how would you describe your style?
When I'm talking to younger people who are coming up and jumping in this world, I'm always, because of where my career has landed, I've called it guerrilla warfare style.
Nice.
And it's really just not so much premeditated, very much on this, like on the moment where, this ring is being presented to, or not a ring, sorry, a letter is being presented to a groom. I'm not really thinking ahead of time what's going to happen. I just know what kind of shots I'm looking for eventually, and I just boom, 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 boom. So yeah, probably not premeditated. And I think that's a pro and a con for reasons in itself, but I try not to stress like the small things like that. I'm very coverage heavy.
Yeah.
That's another way to describe it. And then in terms of like the image itself, like I don't obsess over like color and lighting and such like that. Obviously the gear does a lot of that work for me, and that probably makes me stand out in a couple of ways from other people that we work with. And I know that when I need bare minimum and I meet that, I make sure that like the bride's dress is white, and then we live in an age where we can pretty much manipulate the image to get it to where we need it to be.
Totally. Do you follow the rule of, and I don't know what the technical term for this is, but I was always, and I think I might have been told this by y'all, like let's say you have a groom sitting in a chair looking out a window reading a letter. Do you get 4 different shot types per thing? Is that kind of the general rule, or are you thinking about that as you're doing it, or you're just like, oh, because I know it's generally like over the shoulder, close up, wide, medium shot, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm in that situation, and we have the time, which is always a big caveat.
Sure.
I will let them read through it once on their own, just a steady cam, and then I will get them to fake it so I can get that coverage. So probably like number-wise, I'm never really thinking about, but like the minimum is 3.
Yeah.
If you have 3, and I learned that from Chase, if you have 3 different kind of shots, you can pretty much make that moment cohesive in the highlight video itself.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that's been something I've tried to get a little bit better at, is trying to get those shots, and that was something I kind of learned from Complete. Was I'd always seen that in videos, but I'd never like thought about it in the approach of like, okay, I'm gonna get him to read his letter, I'm gonna get him to have that moment, and then I'm gonna say, hey, let me get you opening it, let me get the over the shoulder shot, things like that. And then it's been a good approach having them read the letter for like if the groom is reading the bride's letter, but he doesn't have to read it out loud, and he can actually enjoy that moment, and hopefully we'll get some tears. I like tears.
That's why I switched to handheld. I mean, that stuff that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have painful memories of me just being obsessed with my Ronin and having a hard time.
And that's me right now. You're trying to break me of that habit. They're slowly breaking me of getting rid of the gimbal. And I've been doing better. I'm trying to find a better cage to kind of make that easier for me.
It's crazy because everyone, you go watch a video. I know there's a whole section about giving advice to young people. Try not to be so much obsessed with gear is probably a big pro tip that I wish I would have told myself. Now, I think my Ronin served me very, very well. I almost talk about it like it died,
You do.
like because I straight up don't use it. I did a second line. For those of you who don't know, second line is basically a march from point A to point B.
You did that handheld?
I did it handheld.
No, bro.
Yeah.
No, bro.
I'll show you the footage.
I'll just
play it right now. I'll send you for the footage.
I swear to you, I'm gonna play the footage. Send me the footage. I will overlay it.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, that guess I'm eating my words now. We're just gonna, for the sake of editing, we're gonna assume that it went really well. I just know, like me, my hands shake so bad. I don't know if that was from years of abuse to my body or what, but yeah. Better follow-up question. What is your positioning to avoid shaking? Because they always say 3 points of contact, that. Is there a certain way you like to?
I have a very firm grip on the right side of the camera, and to the point to where the camera is now there, the LCD screens are flipping out. Mm-hmm. I'm like holding it, this with this, and I don't know what it is, because I have lots of friends who, start seriously shaking. I just don't have that problem.
Yeah, I have to band march.
Yeah,
with the heel toe type deal, or some call it the crab walk.
I think the big thing that you can do is lock your elbows.
This way. Elbows
I
tucked.
do find myself holding and having kind of almost a kangaroo punching stance if you're thinking about your elbows. I haven't thought about this. And it just works for me.
Do you still have now I know your A7 S2s.
Gone.
Yes, thank God. Yeah. Batteries were awful. Sony, thanks for stepping your game up. New batteries are great, by the way, on the A7 S3. So do you have I know when I'd first seen that you had a metallic cage. Metallic, of course it's metallic. You had a cage on there. Do you have that on the A7?
I don't have a cage.
And my first thought was I wonder if he uses this to balance it.
No.
He's so smooth like a ninja as he walks.
It's just the camera. And it's not perfect, man. Like it's really another thing you can jump back to is talking about getting the moment is more important to me than, you know, having a really long take. It's another thing that's really important in my book, at least.
Sure.
So making sure that it's 100% for at least 4 or 5 seconds. Because most of the time, if I'm handheld and I'm doing something,
Are you in 60 or 24?
it just depends on the moment, right? But most of the time, like once after all the pleasantries of, you know, first dance and cake cut, like I call it like a miscellaneous dance moment, just, you know, whatever, you know, whatever music it is, I'm probably in 60, but even then I'm not having that problem.
Right.
But but again, I'm not trying to get, when I was on the Ronin, I was focused on like getting motion in my shot, which requires more time.
Right.
So I've completely flipped over the years. And it's worked really well.
I think it's a lot easier to go handheld. I can't
100%.
seem to do it efficiently. I've been trying to do it during the reception as a way of practicing, because I'm just so used to the Ronin right now. I'm afraid I'm going to make a mistake and it's not going to look good.
And then, you know, this is a problem that you didn't have that I did, because I was shooting on the S2 at the time. The amount of times I had to disassemble Ronin, because I also refused to get a battery pack, which I probably would have made my life easier to just like switch the batteries in from the side. That was a big thing. And then just having shooters around me who were doing handheld, it inspired me and just pushed me to like
Totally
achieve what they were achieving, because I was sweating. Like sweating and running to my bags to like do things.
Yeah, my arm definitely hurts after an 8-hour wedding holding that gimbal all day. I've definitely considered getting one of those, but as if I didn't already stand out enough at a wedding.
Sure. The headphones and the mic,
and I do
Spears mic.
Yeah, and I do have one of those, by the way. And they're great. And next wedding you're gonna wear
one on one time.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I think you'll like it. But like you already stand out in the job. I think it's important that you try not to stand out. Like we don't want to be a sore. You don't want to be a spectacle. Like I want them to look at the bride and be focused on her. I don't want to be like, what is that dude wearing?
Yeah.
Can you share a memorable project or client experience that stands out in your career? What's a highlight?
So I have a 2-part answer to this.
Okay.
When I was still at LSU, me and a couple of classmates of mine, a really good friend of mine, who ended up being a really good friend of mine, we made a little short film called Split Screen, and it was at the advent of people having Oculuses in their house. So we did and it's not amazing by any means, but it was a short film, like a thriller about this game developer who was obsessed with having like a perfect world. And so there would be a couple of times where there was a few scenes where we emulated the guy's living room. And so, but we cleaned it, like completely gutted it of like magazines or like remote controls or anything like that. But then also filmed like a POV shot of him looking around, like with the Oculus on his face, and just being able to like execute something on that level meant a lot to me, because, you know, when you have literally a $0 budget, those are the things that stand out. So that was really cool to do that. And that, you know, I was 21 at the time, 29 as of this recording.
Sure.
So it was a long time ago. But, and then just, I say this all the time to people who've ever questioned, like, going back to my whole, like, I won't do weddings, you know, like, do you ever get burned out? You know, which I know is a question that you have. And like, it's one of those things where when you love to do something, it's a super cliche that like, it's not work, and that's not the route I'm going. There's clearly business elements of it, and there's work elements, and it's just like, life isn't just like perfect when it comes to this thing. But the gratification of having a bride or a groom text you, I mean, it could literally be the easiest, like, the video's amazing, thank you so much. That kind of fuels the whole, endorphin of it all to say like, oh, this is why I'm doing this. You know,
that must be nice. I suffer with a huge amount of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I don't, but that's the thing. Like,
sucks.
At the end of the day, it's like, I say this to newer people coming all the time. Most brides and grooms have not seen themselves shot in 4K footage, whether you render like we do in 1080 or what.
True.
Like, they're not used to it. So, and if you're good on the day of, you're not a pain, you don't make it about you, and you deliver what is probably at this point a good product, and they still don't respond to you, like, I don't sweat that kind of stuff.
Totally.
But just getting, because they, you know, people's lives move on. You know, most people, they go on their honeymoon, they come back, and then within like a certain amount of time, they're pregnant,
Right.
or like new jobs,
Totally.
new locations. So I don't take anything personally, but having the connection of like, oh, I have the opportunity, or we all, everybody who's in this space, we have the opportunity to not only create those memories, but in a way, when you get older, your memory becomes what is the archives.
Mm-hmm.
And we're creating that.
Yeah, I think.
So when you think about it, I try not to think about it too much. It's like, look, at least I'm doing something that is meaningful to someone else, and I'm serving on that level, and that my life purpose is being fulfilled, at least in that way. I don't know what the future holds for me, you, or whoever.
Sure.
But it's one of those things where, and I meant to go look and see how many couples that I've like produced there.
Oh, that would have been
stuff.
cool.
It's probably over 250 at this point, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing,
You've had a hand in all that.
yeah, that, you know, I don't care about credit. I don't care about that kind of stuff. But just the fact that like when they watch something 20 years down the line, this is something that's like lived with me. Even my parents, you know, they had a VHS wedding with like these guys running around. And I've thought about when I've watched their video, like who did it? I would like to go talk to them. And they may or may not be alive. You know, it's one of those weird things where we live in the era of, they probably will remember my name. Some of the, like the ones who texted me and stuff like that, maybe. But even if they don't, just knowing that like you are doing something to that level, you're getting brownie points in some sort of like spiritual way, I guess. Like you're getting something out of it, you know, because you're doing something good. So that's really what drives me with this kind of work.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I had a bride, this was several years ago. She texted me and said, "Hey, my mother passed away." And she's like, "Do you have any extra footage of her?" And I did. And I just sent it to her, and I was like, "Here you go."
Yeah.
But she says, "Thank you so much for that video, because now I get to hear her voice one last time." And I'm all about photo and all that, you know, and I'm all for it. But like, that's something that photo cannot do. I love that video can capture that element, and that's so special, because it's like she got to see her again.
Yeah, no, that's something I tell potential clients all the time when we go to these bridal shows together and stuff. For some reason, and this isn't a good or a bad thing. It's for some reason photo is very much revered over video.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I understand, like, you're gonna blow the photos up. They're gonna be on your wall. They're gonna be on your coffee book table. Coffee book. What am I trying to say? Coffee table book.
Coffee table book.
You know, you're gonna have those things where you look back, and it's almost at this point tradition, because like you could probably go back to the 20s and get somebody's wedding, because film is still good if the person who is a professional photographer. So there's almost like a traditional element to like still having photo, and I've never tried to steer a bride away from having photo, but the line that gets me is, "We don't have the budget for video," and I'm like,
yeah.
I understand these things cost money, but I tell them what you say, like, look, we live in a world where most iPhones can pretty much take a really good photo if the person behind them isn't just like standing in front of somebody, you know?
Right.
And again, it's not apples to apples. I would never say that like having your cousin take photos of your wedding is going to replace having a photographer. Never, 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 never. But it's just, I can't imagine the amount of people who probably would regret not having video.
It's always an afterthought. Like it's literally and I could be wrong, but I feel like videography is the last thing on the budget.
Maybe
most of the time it's gifted by the family. It's like, oh, mom and dad want to help you get a videographer, whatever. Or it's like they've done everything else and they're like, oh, well, I think we can scrape together, X amount of dollars to get a videographer. Cool. Yeah. So.
No, just if anyone's watching this who's in a position that we're talking about, like definitely give videography a chance.
Yeah.
If it's like one of the things that's going to get cut.
Yeah.
And it depends on who your videographer is, like what kind of package they offer. The company I work for, Complete Weddings and Events, we offer 3 different kind of videos. That classic highlight. It's to the point where I can say classic now because it's been about 7, 8 or so years where this is the style of your whole day. You'll get a full ceremony recap, like not even a recap, just a full thing, and then a reception highlight recap. And that, in the end of the day, probably converts to about 2 hours of content. And then if you really love it, most companies, or I would say at least we do, offer raw footage as like an add-on. If you wanted to see more, if you wanted to see, your great aunt who may have passed away last year dance for 20 minutes, so that's just something to consider when you're in the position. And I don't envy that position because weddings and having these kind of things covered can be very expensive. But it's for a reason. And, it's
you get what you pay for.
And it can be really stressful on the person behind the camera, the people behind the camera, because there's so much responsibility that comes with this. And most of us who are really doing this well, don't take that lightly. So, yeah, that's a pro tip.
Love that. Well, and that was going to be my next question. What essential gear recommendations do you have let's just focus specifically on videography.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're coming up in the video world and you don't know where to start, there are budgetary limits, I'm sure, to this. Whatever you do, you need to get a camera that was probably made in 2015 or 16.
That's what I was going to say.
Or higher. And a lot of people like to start off with the nifty 50 lens. And you can go that route. But if you have the ability to have a 24-70, even if it's a f4, that's probably a really amazing place to start because that gives you versatility with obviously focal length. But yeah, those would be the 2 to start off with because you can tell a story with a camera and a lens.
Yeah, and you can get the the Sigma at 24-70, 2.8 very affordably. I mean, in the comparison of most lenses.
Right. Yeah, it's a scary world this is not a cheap hobby or investment in yourself. It's not. So they do keep making cameras though that are getting cheaper and cheaper. So I don't know, I can't predict what's going to happen. But even the A7C2 and the A7R, they never known how to name these things. Mm-hmm. What's the one I'm talking about? The other one? They're like mini versions of the A7C.
ZV100.
Well, that's the consumer level. It's the vlogger one. Mm-hmm. There's one above it. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's A7.
A7C?
It's A7C. They came out with a second.
Oh, did they? I didn't know they came out with the second one.
Well, along with that one, they came out with one, but I'm sitting here saying A7R, but I have an A7R. Mm-hmm. It's something different.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's the reality of it. We're just getting more and more and more. So, and patience is a thing that I would recommend for younger people.
Would you opt for lens over body? Or no? I feel like that was somewhere for me that I made a mistake. I should have.
If I could go back in time, sure. But when I was coming up, the A7S II was only a year old. Mm-hmm. So I was I have to have this camera.
Totally. Yeah.
So don't regret that. I did get a 50 as my first lens.
Sure.
I probably would have changed something about that. But yeah, I mean, it really just depends on your situation. I know that's like, you can pretty much answer any question ever with that. But at the end of the day, yeah, if you had to sacrifice a little bit of money in order to make your lens game a little higher than maybe it would have been, I would prioritize that 100%.
Well, and you know, what y'all are seeing these on is our middle camera is an FX30, and both of our close-up cameras are the Sony A7S3s with Sigma lenses, 2470s. So just to kind of put in perspective of what he's talking about, I mean, because this is crispy. And, you know, getting a nice body and not being, you know, a prime lens or whatever, it's such a negligible difference. Like, I mean, this still looks really tasty, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I remember like obsessively watching YouTube videos and being like, this person said this person said that. I think that's a great place to start your journey, but maybe not being so obsessed with being the next X, Y, and Z or trying to be a disciple of so-and-so, you know. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. I would probably go back and make a couple of different decisions in terms of gear, but you know, ultimately you can't really have regret because I got us to where we are now.
Yeah.
So.
And I think one of the big tips that I would give somebody for as far as growth goes is everything that I would make, I would take a little bit and I would invest back into the company.
Mm-hmm.
And that would, I mean, you know, so I shoot weddings with Complete, but my company, Rave Media, my personal brand, we do other stuff, podcasts, we do commercial work, stuff like that. A lot of that has all been done for the first 3 or 4 years. I mean, we lived off my wife's salary. Mm-hmm. And now we're just now starting to be like, hey, our taxes are going to be okay this year. Like, cause it's, you know, buying gear and it seems like it's a never ending cycle of having to like buy stuff. And just when you think you've bought the stuff, it breaks, you know, and you got to replace it. And that's a whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a really interesting place to like talk about. I brought a friend. I don't know if that will be far enough to see.
It's in manual focus, so you can just hold it up to your face. It'll read.
So yeah, this is my first camera ever. This was back in 2007.
Here, let's hold that up.
Yeah. All right. Very nice.
Yeah. So this is the Canon PowerShot SD750, 7.1 megapixels.
How many megapixels?
7.1.
And it's crazy that the A7S3 is only 12.
Yeah.
But you don't need more. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I don't get obsessed.
Video, you know.
I don't get obsessed with those.
Well, considering the R3 is what, 46?
Yeah, something like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, man, look, I was in middle school in the era where like everyone had one of these on them. Mm-hmm. I didn't go anywhere without this on me. This was before I had a cell phone. I didn't have a cell phone until 8th grade graduation. And me and my friends would just make skits on this thing. And I still have those videos. I will never show them to anyone because they're horribly embarrassing. And
well, it just so happens that we have one of those clips. We're going to go ahead and play that for you now.
And unbelievably cancelable, some of them. But that was just, you know, we were stupid young kids. But yeah, man, I loved this thing growing up. And I really, at the time, I really wanted to be like a full-fledged musician, and this was more of a side thing. So it was really fun.
Gosh, let's talk music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, we've gone 30 minutes here just talking about video, and
you might have to cut some of this.
I'll make it 2-parter. That's okay.
That's fair.
So let's talk about you as a musician. How did you get your start in that, and what led you from musician to videographer?
Yeah, that's a fun little journey. Yeah, so first and foremost, I will say, like, I am professional in the sense that I've done this for a while and I've been paid to do it, but like there is always room to grow. I never tried to like pretend that I know everything under the sun when it comes to this. And that all stems from music. So I am a self-taught guitar player, singer, self-taught singer, I guess. It's just, I never took lessons on either one. And just growing up, I was just always surrounded by music in the house. Just as I remember my parents had 2 big old Sony speakers, just like huge, like taller than me until I was probably like 11. maybe like 9, but just always playing rock or country or anything in between. And I just got obsessed with like the I guess the beat, storytelling, these things like intertwine with my interests. And I was a kid who didn't want to play sports. And
Right.
growing up in the South, this isn't just like a Louisiana thing, just growing up in the South, like you were very much coerced to like do sports. And I understand why. Like you make friends, it teaches you discipline, yada, yada, yada. I just had no interest whatsoever. So I would turn to movies, video games, and music for like expressing myself. So by the time I was getting into fifth or sixth grade, I decided that I wanted to be a musician, and I didn't know where to start. In fact, it was like one of the classic tropes of like me having a group of friends, and we're like, well, so-and-so is a guitar player. So-and-so has a guitar already. Eric, you're going to be bass because we need a bass player. And my question was, what is a bass?
Nice.
I had no clue. So I just jump into that world just by chance, sit in front of a computer for a year and teach myself how to play bass. And then that translates to guitar. And then that goes into us playing the talent show in 8th grade. We played Twist and Shout by the Beatles. And I was a very reserved, shy kid, but like having my, first of all, in my opinion at the time, my brothers, my, fellow soldiers, whatever you want to say, just like on stage as a team and getting like good reception from the crowd, like that was almost like a drug. And it was funny because we seriously did it for many years. I was a serious working musician, whatever that means. That's almost oxymoronic, but for about a decade or so, probably even like closer to 15 years, and I was just in love with it. But I started getting obsessed with the storytelling aspect of it, like writing lyrics. So that meant something to me that weren't just like trash. And I have love for trash lyrics as well.
Sure.
I think there's a time and place for everything in that realm, but we were writing songs about growing up, questioning things around you, using your brain for yourself. But we did it in a fun way. Like we had groove was a really important element in our bands, not using like the I love you, you love me kind of wording. We'd always like use more abstract lyrics. And yeah, man, that was pretty much my life. I dedicated my life to music. I remember like telling people in the 9th grade, like, yeah, I'm not going to college. Cause I went to collegiate prep schools, and I was telling peers of mine, like, yeah, I'm not going to college. Why? Oh, cause the music thing's going to work out.
I'm going to be a rock star.
The music thing's going to work out. I didn't even care to what level. It was just like, as long as I was with my friends playing, and we were like making a decent living, I would have been okay.
Totally.
Of course, my friends had I think they were very much on board. And if for some reason we had some sort of pop-off moment before like that 17, 18 year timeline, I think we would have seriously done it. But of course, like you have to think realistically.
Totally.
At that point, and we all kind of went our own way. But within that time, I mean, to jump back to something I was saying earlier, it was really, I still loved making skits. I was filming a lot of the BTS stuff for our bands, whether it was on an iPhone 4 or the little power shot that I had. I was always the guy behind the camera. I grew up on things like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and everything under the sun. I was obsessed with movies. So when the time came, it was just a natural fit to have my dedication be to like doing this thing with video. I never saw myself as a guy who just sat behind a desk crunching numbers. That was the thing. Now, of course, I sit behind a desk a lot of the time, but I'm doing something that has like a creative flow inherently. And another big thing that translates with all that stuff is like being on a team. That's why I loved being in a band. I never wanted to be Elvis. I wanted to be the Beatles. because Elvis probably was lonely because he had to do a lot of stuff on his own. He had to be like the face, the talent.
And he died on the toilet.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
That's what happens when you have to like deal with all the crap.
When you're not a team, you die on the toilet.
You heard it here first. But yeah, that team element.
Like and subscribe.
The team element always translated for me. That's why I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll do film, because obviously that's not, most of the time one person gets credited, but it's really a huge team that's working together.
It's a collaboration.
Yeah, that's always what I was really into.
That's great.
I did find myself in like maybe leaderish roles at times. Even when I was in the band, I was the guy who was like calling up everyone, being like, hey, when are we going to write the next song? Hey, when are we going to practice? But that wasn't something that I like desired. It's just somebody had to do that.
Yeah.
So anyway, jumping into like where I am now, one of the big things that I loved about Complete was there was an owner who was a videographer or had an actor and film background, director background. And then that branched down to like a general manager, office managers who had music backgrounds, DJ backgrounds. And then you go down the umbrella and you got all these people who have like similar but different backgrounds who are all on the same team. We all want to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people who are very different, like just completely different sides of life. But we're a team, and I've always been like obsessed with that kind of work environment. So that's really why, I mean, to be quite frank with you, there have been times where I was able to maybe go be a videographer like permanently for like a big corporation or a university, and it just was like, no. You know, it was one of those things where it was like, I like where I'm at.
Yeah, totally.
So, and I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have met plenty of our like mutual friends.
Absolutely. No, it's been great having, because there's been times, especially having a newborn, where I've thought like, maybe I do need to go get like the corporate videography job and be like a quote unquote content creator for whatever, for a real estate company. But at some point you're like, this is going pretty well. Yeah. Like I should keep doing whatever I'm doing now. I think I should just keep doing it.
Yeah. And I don't think either one of us are knocking down somebody who is like, hey,
not at all.
I work for so-and-so because I have 3 kids.
The consistency is so important. Like, and it's scary when you never, and I think you're at Complete, you have a little bit of consistency there. And me as a freelancer, I never know where my next meal is coming from. And that can be very scary sometimes, so.
Yeah, I mean, your happiness and your health and wealth obviously are probably what is driving most of your decision making in life. But yeah, I know people who have joined our company who do have like full-time like video gigs on the week, and they would say things like, I just miss weddings. And as somebody who like lives and breathes it every day, sometimes I'd be like, are you serious? But yeah, if you walk away from it long enough, I think it does come back. And like, I'm dealing with that in my own life. We at Complete in the office group, we at least once a year have like a meeting where we talk about like our 1-year goals, our 3-year goals, our 5-year goals. And the past couple of ones we've had, I have like openly stated like, I want to play music in some capacity again. Probably not nearly as intense as it was 10, 15 years ago, but it was something that's so integral to like my whole life that like I've been away from it now long enough for it to like have a real effect. The last paid gig, and not that matters, but just as a mark of the last time I played for money was December of 2021, I think. Yeah, I think. It might have been 2022. I can't remember. You have kids, and then you can't remember anything that happened before it. But still, it's to the point where like, and then, but the more significant point from that, let's say it was 21 or 22, the last time I got paid to play was 2018. So,
yeah.
But
finding the time to do it is there's literally not enough time in the day.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the big things is like music and me and your lives, weddings typically are on the same day. So, in fact, the last time I played bass for a band that was at a wedding.
Right.
And Jen, photographer that I know, was there.
I bet she loved that.
I walked in and she's like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "I'm actually not videoing.
I'm slapping the bass.
I'm playing up there." And she was like, "I am getting so many photos of you."
Absolutely.
So, but anyway.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so the two are, they're very similar in a lot of ways.
Okay. Well, I mean, dude, I think we could go another 2 hours just sitting here talking, but we'll definitely have you back on.
On again. Yeah. I think the big takeaways from like our conversation is if you're in the video world or you want to be in the video world, figure out what angle you want to go. Be patient. Be realistic with like what you can do and where you can go.
Yeah.
Because, we live in a world now where video is kind of king. Everyone needs like video coverage of the thing that's happening. So if you like sports, go make friends with people who are in that world. If you're a skateboarder, you'd be surprised like the video culture that is with skateboarding.
Oh yeah, fisheye lens.
Yeah. If you want to get into weddings, if you never, how many weddings had you been to before you started shooting weddings? Because I know my answer.
It's pretty low.
It's like 5.
Yeah, it's pretty low.
So now I've probably been to over 200.
Oh yeah.
And I wouldn't even call myself a wedding guy. It's one of those things where if I'm at a wedding, hopefully I'm like doing what I do best and I'm like capturing it.
To go to a wedding without doing video feels weird now. I'm like, do I need to be doing something? Like, it feels odd. Like it's very weird.
It's so baked into us that like I've almost asked a couple of my friends, like, don't ask me to be in your wedding. Like, I'm one of the worst groomsmen. I refuse to go on bachelor trips.
Yeah.
And just because I'm missing out on work. And I know that could come off as standoffish or like whatever or snobby, but it's one of those things where like I have certain goals for myself where like hopefully in 10 years, maybe I'm not doing the exact same thing, but maybe I am. I don't know. It just depends. But my big advice for somebody who may be watching this, who is trying to figure it out, is really be patient. That's the biggest. Be patient, be open to learn, and be open to be wrong.
Yeah, I love that.
That's just like a life thing. Like, be open to be wrong. The amount of people who we've worked with that are willing to learn something different or willing to at least adapt to something different, that goes a long way over like somebody who's been doing it for like 10 years and is like super set on their way,
right,
and won't like adapt to it like a team
And
situation.
I think that's big, like if we make a mistake, to take ownership of it.
Yeah.
And say, hey, look, I messed up, I'll try and do better next time, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, man.
No, dude, I appreciate being here.
So let's go into the rapid fire round real quick. I'm going to fire, don't look.
Okay.
I'm going to fire off some questions and you just take a sip of water. Yep. Okay, rapid fire rounds. Favorite location and the local area to shoot?
It's so funny because it's probably my least favorite and my favorite. It's just downtown Baton Rouge. There's something about it that's so classic, and it really hasn't changed since I've lived here in terms of like aesthetically. And you have like the water tower, the bridge in the background. You got a lot of greenery. You got a lot of street. You got a lot of
that urban feel with the levees looks real cool. Yeah.
You got the old governor's mansion. You got a bunch of stuff.
Absolutely. Okay, best time of day to shoot?
Probably like for me, like somewhere between 3 and 5:30, depending.
Golden hour?
Yeah, I mean, depending.
Oh, I feel like I need to change this question because any of us are going to be like the golden hour. Your go-to camera and lens combination?
Yeah. So for me right now, it's the A7S III with, if I can get it, a the G Master 2, 24 to 70, 2.8. But reality is I probably don't always have access to that. So just something similar to that.
Totally. Top tip for editing videos effectively? AI.
Use multicam if you're in a situation where you could do that, and then consider culling your footage like a photographer would.
Well done. All right, Eric. Well, thank you so much. You can find this on all major platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It'll be on YouTube. Like and subscribe, and we look forward to having you back.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
See y'all.